where she needed to meet me or get into the next aid station somewhere where I needed to be to meet her with sleeping gear. So that was my main focus outside of just telling them where to be when.
Okay, sure, sure, that makes sense. So now let's just like go through her attempt, and if there's any good stories or interesting notes. I know some of the stories, from her being on the podcast last week, but we'll hear it from your perspective. So day one, as you guys started, you dropped her off at Allen and she hit that solo. So take me through, was there anything in day one that sticks out to your mind in particular?
Um, well, day one started out really smooth, and Sarah made really good time of Alan. She came out around when we thought she would. She was moving really well, feeling really good. And the same with Santanonis. She went out. She and Aaron both just went out and had a great time out there. And from there, my job was to get from the Santanonis to the Quarry Road trailhead in the Sewards, and then hike all the way into the farthest out lean-to with a backpack with new shoes, new socks, food, some nutrition for them, a full aid package that Sarah had already prepackaged.
Hmm.
So I think Aaron gave me some pizza and a Red Bull and a couple random things. And I'm jogging out there, not knowing how close they are, which was hard without cell phone service, being able to see the trackers. So I've got probably a 25-pound backpack full of snacks, and I'm just running, and then it just starts slowly drizzling, and then starts raining. And I finally make it to the lean-to, and I'm wondering if they passed me or not, but there was an older gentleman and his son in the lean-to, and I asked him if these two runners had come through yet, and they looked at me, and the guy said, "What were they running from?" Like, well, they're running from the Santanonis to the Stewarts. He goes, "That doesn't sound right." I said, "Well, that's what they're doing today." And I sat in the lean-to, and they got up and left. But luckily, I had missed them. But in the process of getting out there, I thought that it was raining a little bit harder behind me for some reason, and I started to smell something that smelled familiar, and a Red Bull had exploded in my pack.
Perfect.
So, of course, the first thing that Aaron asked for when he got to the lean-to was his Red Bull that I was now wearing in my pants.
Classic.
So that was day one right there. The rest of the day went fairly smooth. They met me, they changed. It rained for a little bit, which was good for them. It helped them stay cool. And then they went out and they finished the Seward Range and met me at the Corey's trailhead, where I kind of got about maybe an hour's worth of sleep in the rain in the back of the truck, which was great after not sleeping since 4 o'clock Sunday morning.
Whew, yeah, that
Uh,
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I noticed that you had less sleep than Sarah, at least at one point, which says a lot about what these support crews are doing during these attempts. It's just as fascinating to me. I mean, I work in the film industry behind the scenes, so like how things come together is what interests me. So this element of it, to me, I find fascinating, the behind the scenes support of the whole thing, because that's wild. And most people wouldn't think that the crew is getting even less sleep, but those are the facts of the matter here. Amazing stuff. So day one, not too bad at that point, as far, especially since where you guys are. Although, if you had, so did you were at the Santanoni range and then you had to drive to the Seward range?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a bit of a haul as far as driving goes.
Yes, it was not a short drive, and I actually ended up going all the way back into Saranac. Sarah had made a last minute request for a pair of shoes that we had at the house because she wasn't really thrilled with the first pair that she wore on Allen. So we got another pair for backup. So I made it back to Corey's Road after going to Saranac, and then ran about, I think it's 6.5 miles into the far lean-to where I met them. And I got there probably about 45 minutes to an hour before they did. So
Okay, cool. So that worked. So
it
that was
was
okay.
it was nice. It was a good break to cool off and relax a little bit, kind of sleep with my eyes open for a few minutes while I
Sure.
waited.
And
Um,
crisis averted. You got the shoes, and nothing went off track at that point.
exactly. No, we were actually, she was slightly ahead because she'd taken a little bit of time off of her Allen time, so that was good. That had everybody's spirits really high, and I think she carried that through the entire day because when they came out of the Seward range, she was just going as strong as she had at the beginning of the day, and it was 54 miles later. She wasn't even really looking like she'd done anything. So I think having that good start to the day and not too hot conditions really just she thrived on it.
54 miles and not seeming like you've done anything. That's wild. That's incredible. Amazing. Okay, cool. So day two, she got to sleep in her own bed that night, so that's obviously clutch. But then a super early start on Cascade and Porter.
Yes, I was actually communicating back and forth with Aaron a little bit that night while she was sleeping because he was staying down towards Keene, and he informed me that it had been dumping buckets of rain down there, which wasn't really ideal for what we were about to venture into. But then, about an hour before we left, he told me it had stopped. So while Sarah was sleeping, I was pre-packing and everything, and just kind of thinking about the fact that we were going to be going into the bushwhack from Porter over to Big Slide in some nice, not too thick woods, but not super friendly woods, and they would be soaking wet. So it was going to be a long night to start her back out. And she got up, we got going, we drove down, we made it up Cascade in no time. Actually, we kind of kept our heads down to the point where we didn't even see the junction for Porter. And all of a sudden, we were just at the head wall to start climbing up Cascade in maybe 40, 45 minutes. So, hour and a half of sleep after 54 miles, and she was still going really strong. Um, so we made it up Cascade in no time, dropped down, went over to Porter. It was pretty mucky as always, and that's where we changed into some bushwhacking clothes, and the adventure really began for the night. We'd done the bushwhack before, and we just did it the opposite direction during the day, so everything's a little different in the night, and it did take us a little bit longer than it had during the day. The wet conditions weren't exactly ideal for bushwhacking, but we got it done. We got over to Big Slide, and that's when her momentum for day two really started. So we popped over to Yard, which we both said to each other, I don't know how this isn't high peak.
Sure. Yeah.
It gets you every time. We made our way down to the lean-to in Klondike Notch, took a break for a couple minutes, enjoyed the fact the sun was up and it was starting to warm up, then took the not so bushwhack herd path up Phelps where I dropped her off to her next pacer, and she was moving pretty good at that point. The sun was definitely an effect for her. When it went down, it slowed her down. When it came up, it really encouraged her. It got her going even faster. So Bethany was off to the races with her to tabletop while I jogged back out to the lodge and finished my 17-mile loop for the morning.
Yeah. So you guys had a resupply. I think it was at the Klondike Lean-To. Is that where you guys had the resupply before Phelps? Somewhere over there, if I'm remembering correctly.
We didn't have I had a free resupply of stuff in my pack for her, so
Okay.
we kind of just sat down. She refueled a little bit. She took off her bushwhacking clothes. We packed that all back up, and it was more or less like a breakfast slash change of clothes.
So
Yeah.
you guys started at Cascade. So now you're at the Adirondack Lodge. Was there someone there to pick you up? Did you guys already stage a car there? Tell me about your situation at that point.
So that was kind of an evolving scenario where I initially was just going to do the bushwhack with her and maybe go up Big Slide, and then her roommate was going to pick me up at the garden afterwards. And she was just kind of doing it. She was going, and I got onto the Big Slide trail, and I sent him a message, and I said, "Are you down there sleeping?" And he said, "Not yet." And I called him, and I said, "I think I'm just going to go with her. I'm going to get down, go over to Yard with her, take her to Phelps to the next support member, and we're just going to go from there. Can you figure out getting me a ride?" And he said, "Yeah." And he called Aaron. They actually last minute did a car swap for me, so he picked up Aaron. They picked up Sarah's truck. They got the truck to the lodge, so I can come out of the lodge and just, in theory, crawl in the truck and take a nap afterwards,
So
which was
many
great.
moving parts. Yeah, so many moving parts constantly. Cool. So then you dropped her off. She went up tabletop with another pacer. You're at the
Yes.
lodge now at this point. So now what's your next duty or your next thing that you're making sure is coordinating properly?
At that point, I was reaching out to her next Pacers to kind of let them know where she was at. I actually, there's just a little bit of Wi-Fi at the Lodge Information Center there, so I kind of camped out there for a few minutes. I sent one of her friends a message and asked her if she could bring some last minute like hash browns because Sarah was kind of over the sweets in the morning and wanted something warm and salty, so hash browns seemed just right. So her friend and her daughter came over. Uh, her roommate Matt showed up. We talked about what was going on, if I had noticed anything. So he was prepared for when she came back from tabletop. Um, and I think her friend Ian showed up a little bit after that. So it was kind of coordinating friends and family and the next Pacers all at once. So my nap that I was going to try and get actually went out the window when it just turned into getting ready for the next round.
Sure, yeah. No time to sleep, time to get ready for the next batch of
Right.
miles here. Sure. That makes sense because
But
yeah, it's a big day that she has here had here for day two. Um, so at this point, how much sleep did you get the night before?
I actually didn't sleep.
Oh
I
God, so
kind of
you
laid
are running.
down and I had a lot going through my head as far as what needed to be prepared for the next day. And I found out it was pouring rain. So I was kind of checking the forecast a little bit to see what was happening. And yeah, sleep just wasn't going to happen. So I just got up and just started pre-packing a couple more things that needed to go for the next day. That was the beauty of being able to come back to the house is I could adjust anything gear-wise that we needed due to the conditions or just last-minute items that I might have forgotten. So I spent the sleep time while she was sleeping. I just kind of rested for a few minutes, packed, and then got the coffee going.
Got the coffee going, of course. That makes perfect sense. So then, so she got some hash browns, somewhere around the Adirondack Lodge. Obviously, a big pick me up for anybody. But I know at that point she was starting to feel some pain in her legs as she went to Street and I, or maybe it was just after Street and I, but it was kind of around that point into the trip. So for you guys, what did you have to do to make sure she's continuing to move efficiently despite aches and pains starting?
Well, first and foremost, we had some good friends there, and a couple of her pacers for the afternoon were there. So everybody kind of got her. She was in good spirits when she came in, but everybody kept her in really good spirits. While Matt kind of went top to bottom with her and said, "What's hurting? Why has it been hurting? When did it start hurting?" And he just started working his magic as far as wrapping her feet up and taping her ankles and getting everything in a way that was comfortable for her that she could deal with the aches and pains that were starting to come out. And from there, she had some good food. We had some recovery smoothies, the hash browns. It's all the good stuff that makes you not really think about the aches and pains. A good conversation, good jokes, seeing some friends. Her friend came with her daughter, and they had a big sign that they'd made for her. So her spirits are really high, which helps when things are starting to not feel so great. And she left the lodge to go out the street and I. She was in great spirits, and she went out and came back actually pretty quick. She was right on pace for time for that, so that was good for her. She knew she had a good friend with Jan coming up to pace for the Mac range after that. So it was just one good thing after another. It was helping her overcome the onset of the lack of sleep and little aches and pains. But she had good company, and her overall attitude was so good, and her energy was high, so it was inspiring for everybody around her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could imagine. She's inspiring them. She's being inspired by them. Yeah, totally. Makes perfect sense. Cool. So then she went up the McIntyre Range with Jan, and that started, I guess, the second half of the day.
Yes, that was my first real big aid station carry where I had an 85-liter pack with regular size bear can and a